Hello and welcome. Well, I guess I don't have all these things fixed yet, but we're getting closer. Welcome. So, despite what you might be hearing out there, there's a lot of people that are implying that search AI and generative AI are the same thing, that they're interchangeable. That's not really true. So we're going to talk tech about the differences between all three of those and what the pros and cons of each are. Let's get started, shall we?
So watch our channel, come and see and laugh and learn, and you'll agree you'll make your tech life easier with your tech coach.
Oh my goodness, I swear I really don't want my name up there that much, but okay. Hello and welcome. Happy to have you here. Let's try to make that go away for real. Okay, we're good. So we're going to dive into this because there's a lot of conflicting information out there, people using information that's not quite accurate, interchanging terminology, which causes concerns and confusions. So we're going to try to clear this up so that you're making the right decision for whatever your goal is. Because each one is absolutely handy and a wonderful thing to have, but you need to pick the right tool, right? So it's very much like, if you're going to be working on something in your house or, following a recipe in the kitchen, you need the right tool, you need the right ingredients to get the right outcome, right? So just because you have a hammer, not everything's a nail. If you're looking to make a seafood dinner, candy bars are really not an even swap out. Yummy, but not an even swap out. So that's what we're going to get into. As always, all of the links are in the description, so you don't have to, worry about that. But we're going to go ahead and get started because you are probably hearing a lot about how AI and generative AI are the next big thing for all the things. Throw everything else out. Just use these. No, not really. So the very fact that we're even talking about AI and generative AI is a source of confusion for people. So we're gonna go through all of this and try in a reasonable amount of time to explain all this stuff. But we want to make sure that we're clearing up the things that are being misleading or in some cases just flat out wrong. So we're going to start off by talking about search. Marcus, thank you for the jingle. Yes, that's a recent addition from Kevin Murphy. If you're familiar with Mystery Science Theater riff tracks, he did that for me. So I'm super excited about it. So we're going to start by talking about search, then we'll work into AI, and then we'll get into generative AI because it does kind of stair-step up. And this way, hopefully you will know which one to use at the right time. And, feel free to go ahead and jump in the comments if you have, any questions or anything you want to throw out there. All right, search engines. Actually, you know what? Let me switch over to my other. Oh, actually, I think let me see if this program works. Yes, that does work. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. I swear, I really don't want my name up there this much. Okay. Really? This particular overlay just really is excited to be here. Okay, so, nope. These are the things we're going to be talking about. We're going to take them in order. So let's go ahead and start with the first one, which would be this one. Okay. So let's talk search engines, really is what we're talking about here, because we're really concerned and focused on the thing in the background that is giving us the results that we're asking for, or what it thinks are the results that we're asking for. So you want to think about a search engine sort of as like a massive library at your fingertips. You're going to type in, your keywords or phrases, which is considered your search query, and it's going to sift through billions of web pages and documents and databases and all that kind of stuff, old and new, to get you the most relevant matches, right? So it's kind of like having a really handy, super speedy librarian who knows exactly where everything is and just gives it to you as you ask for it. The pros of this are you're already familiar with it because you've been using it. They are free and easy to use. There's probably a handful of paid search engines out there, but most of them are free. And you just open up your browser and you can go ahead and start looking. You don't even need to set up accounts. You don't need to do anything extra. You just go pick your favorite and go for it. This is one of the big things that makes search still very valid in our day and age, and that is it has way more up-to-date information than the other options that we're going to talk about. Search engines are constantly scanning the web, collecting information. So you're usually getting, the most up-to-date information and news and that type of thing. And that's where this is a big gap between search and the other two. Search is definitely something that is constantly up to date. So you literally could go in today and ask about, something that happened yesterday and get some results. Now, yes, obviously, the more time goes by, the more information it's able to collect, but you're going to get something in your timeline that is relevant. Hang on, doggo, what are you doing? Stop. Thank you. So the timeline issue is really critical here. If you're looking for something that's up to date, search is still going to be your best option and probably will be for a while, and we'll get into the reasons for that in a minute. The other benefit to search is you get a ton of results from a wide variety of sources, and that allows you to compare and filter and find the best fit. And whatever search results you do, like if you do a search result today for, whatever, let's say you're searching for a car, right? So maybe you're, going to search for Toyota Camry, and maybe a certain year you're looking for a used one. You're going to get the same results as your friend if they're helping you do the car search, right? Now, there could be some minor differences through, location, some personalization that they may or may not have turned on, but in general, you're going to get the same results as somebody else. And if you search for that today and tomorrow, other than updated information, it's going to be the same results. So it's reliable. It's something you can go back to. And like I said, personalization, localization can have, a small part in it, but as an overall statement, this is information that you're going to get back that, a week, days later, hours later, months later, you'll still get sort of the same general thing. Now, the cons of it is what we talked about is also a pro, right? Information overload is possible. Sometimes you get so many results, you don't really know where to start. And it can be tricky to be specific, so if your search is too broad, you may end up with irrelevant results. Now, just as a subtext here, that can be managed by using what they call Boolean searches. So you think about, if, or and, or, and not are really the three that you're going to use a lot. So, Toyota Camry, and, 2008, not blue is going to be more specific than just putting in Toyota Camry, right? It'll give you that more filtered result. Also, in the results that you get back, most search engines give you a way to add additional filters. So you can say, show me results from the past 90 days, show me from a certain location. So again, you can filter down those results to make them more targeted. The other con about a search engine is it doesn't understand or really care about your intent, right? It just says, okay, you told me these keywords and phrases, here are the results that match. So it's not trying to tap into your underlying need or goals or anything like that. It's just, you asked this, I'm giving you back that. There's also no threading inside of a search engine. Again, in general, there are exceptions out there to everything I'm going to say because that's life and that's technology. But there's no, each search is essentially a blank slate, right? So there's no carryover from a previous search into the current one. So that again, that's a pro or a con depending on what it is that you're doing, but it is just something to consider. The best uses for search tend to be things like, finding websites, articles, news, images, videos, anything that's publicly available online. Quick facts, right? The weather, definition, details about a historical event, but also things like products, services, all that kind of stuff. And it can be, for someplace you're going to or worldwide, or you can keep it local. That's all up to you. It's also really good when you're trying to do that kind of research to compare products or services, finding the best deals on flights and hotels, that kind of thing. You're not going to really rely on search for things like, creating new content, which we'll talk about more in a minute. So, a search engine is not going to create a story for you, a poem. It's not going to write code for you. It can help point you to examples and resources for that kind of thing, but it's not going to do that kind of thing for you. And again, the personalized advice or recommendations, threading, like building on a conversation, like you've done 3 searches, it's going to treat each one individually. It's not going to try to combine those together for you. So the results are not going to necessarily, be tied to any kind of thread that you have going on in your head. It's also not going to give advice or recommendations. It's just going to give you information back. Finally, expecting a search engine to understand complex or nuanced questions is going to lead to disappointment. So while you can do some functions, like calculations, for example, in some search tools, the main focus is quick access to information. Does that sound good to everybody? We're good? Okay. I'm going to let this bring up this because I was so excited about it. So for anybody who's new here, my name is Kathleen. I'm working as your tech coach here. The short version of the story is technology is my day gig. It's also my hobby. So friends, family, neighbors, coworkers tend to come to me with questions when they're looking for recommendations, when they need help troubleshooting. And I know not everybody has somebody like that. So hello, that's why I'm here every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Happy to have you here, whether you're watching live or watching on a replay. I'm always happy to have you here. Alrighty, let's go back to this. And again, it's, let me just try to hard deny. There we go. Okay. So that was search in a nutshell. It's something that, you're already using and used to. So now let's move on to AI. Now, you probably have played with it a little bit on some level or not. So if you haven't, the first thing, regardless of everything else that's about to come, is I do recommend that you go in and you play around with it and try it. It's interesting. It is getting interwoven into everything that we're doing, which I'll talk about in a minute. So it's good to be aware of it, to understand strengths and weaknesses and see how it's being used. Don't worry about what you're putting into it other than do not put personal information, confidential information, anything like that, because anything you put into the AI, so whatever prompts you give it to get something back, is also feeding its so-called learning. So anything that you give it, either prompts or examples or resources, becomes a part of what it is possibly going to spit out to other people. So do be cautious about that. Keep it pretty generic is basically the way to go. All right, so let's talk about AI, right? The so-called artificial intelligence. Now, if you've been around here for a while, you've already heard me rant about it's not AI the way people think of AI based on what they've read in science fiction. It's artificial, yes, it's not intelligence. And so people refer to it like it's a super smart computer program that can learn to make decisions. Not really. These are applications that are really, really good at pattern matching and can stay on topic, mostly. So what this means is it will try to keep the context of what you've been interacting with it about and return information that maps to what people are most often shown about that topic. That's a mouthful, I know. So what we're talking about here is it is going out and it is going through all of the information that has been given access to, and it's in its database to see, when people have used these particular terms or this particular pattern and they're doing this kind of thing and they're operating in this kind of role, this is what tends to come back. It's not creating anything new. It is regurgitating stuff that it has used before or has seen before to provide it to you. The other part of this equation here is that in order to be successful, AI requires more than just keywords. So you're going to want to create a prompt that includes a lot more detail. As an example, there's a lot of different ways to do this. It all depends on what your goals are. It depends on which AI tool you're using. But as a general statement, something like the 5 W's and an H, right? Who, what, where, when, how, and or why and how. If you give it that, if you answer those questions like the prompt is giving them that information, you tend to get better results back. Another way to do that is to kind of couch it inside of it's not really a script. It's inside of like some context, right? So working as X. So as a technical writer, as a marketing expert, as a, whatever, some sort of role, do this thing, whatever it is that you want it to do. Where the goal is and define the goal, keeping in mind, and then give it whatever parameters you want this to work off of. 4, define your audience. Who is this for? Is it for yourself? Is it for an audience? Is it for a customer? What is it that they're looking for? That kind of thing. Using a tone, and you're going to define the tone. Focusing on, and this is where you can put in some keywords or phrases. using a format of special formatting, which you may or may not need this particular block, but it's something else to consider. And then you can say, here are some resources and examples, and provide it links or documents or images or videos or whatever. Again, depending on what you're trying to do. You can also prompt it to ask questions to further refine the project so that you can have some back and forth with it. That's where it starts to feel like you're talking to a human to some people. And sometimes that will help you get better results out of it. But you can already see, like, just from that, what I just talked about, right? It's not the same as going to, a search engine and typing in, Italian restaurants or Italian restaurants near me. It's not the same. Now, you can put that in there, but the results that you're going to get, are not really going to be harnessing the power of what is available in AI, and also they may not be helpful. It's definitely, a coin toss on how useful it'll be, because that's not what AI is built to do, as opposed to a search engine, which is absolutely designed to take that and say, here you go. So different tools for different purposes, and you do got to factor that in. Some of the pros of AI are personalization of a sort. So again, they talk about, how AI can learn your preferences and tailor experiences to you. And a lot of times the equivalency that they'll make here is, sort of like, Spotify with music recommendations, or Netflix with movies, Amazon with products that are like what you've bought before, that kind of thing. The level of personalization, again, is going to vary depending on the tool, but also the permissions you give it. So if you're going to go in and use an AI tool and not create an account, then obviously the next time you come in, it's not going to know you. So it's not going to have any history. So it's not really personalizing and learning about you. Again, and it's not really learning about you. It's making note of the patterns, right? Oh, okay. Every time this person comes in under this account, they're always talking about, dogs and looking for information on dogs. So I'm going to focus on dog results. We'll get into that in a minute. I get sidetracked easy. There is a level of automation that you can use AI tools for. Again, depending on the tool, and it does require a little bit more comfort level with it, and generally requires an account. But a lot of them can handle repetitive tasks, like going through your emails and filtering out spam, scheduling appointments, that kind of thing. Problem solving. Now, this is something that AI can do a really nice job on, because a lot of problem solving starts with identifying patterns, right? Or looking for missing patterns, right? So AI can analyze complex data, find patterns for you, offer solutions, highlight things that could possibly be an issue. So it does depend. Marcus says, I asked for the order of books in a series. I got a detailed, accurate answer. Right. Well, I'm not saying that it's always wrong or it's always right, but that's the point. Like, it depends on what you do it, how you do it, and which tool you're using, right? Because you're going to get different results from Google Gemini, which used to be Bard, or ChatGPT, or Llama, if you're in the Facebook world. So again, it depends on the tool, and also for those tools, when you go into an AI tool, very often you have to select which version of the AI you want to use, because they're customizing it, not for you, but for them. But like right now, let me just check. When I go into Gemini now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different levels. Here, I can bring this up, I think. Is it this one? Yeah. So it's not like you just go in and you're using Gemini, because depending on, hitting the wrong thing. Depending on what I select, I'm going to get different results, right? So there's a couple of experimental ones. There's one for deep research, Flash for quote unquote everyday help. I think this is what they're trying to shove into their assistants and their search results. Pro, so, and not everybody's going to have these. Now, because I am a Google Fi user, I'm getting advanced services from Google Gemini for free, whereas other people are going to have to pay for it. So this is where this starts to get way more complex than people are making it out to be. So just be aware. Let me keep going here. So cons include things like the information's not up to date. So the learning, right? So the database filling, let's call it that, right? The database filling part of this that all these AIs are using in order to build out their pattern matching, it takes time. Some of them are as many as 5, 8, 10 years behind, right? So the data that they've got, ends, we're in 2025, so it would end in 2015, right? The most up-to-date information they have is as of 2015. But they don't tell you that. Some of them are less. Some of them, it's like 2 or 3. But again, not up to date. Whereas the search engines are definitely, up to date. Like I said, we could search today for something that happened yesterday. We could search today for something that happened 2 hours ago. The depth of the results from the search will vary, right? Because it does take time for all the other stuff to come through, but it's not as big a gap as the multi-year gap that we're getting with the AIs right now. Another con is that AI can be biased. So AI learns, right? I hate that they use that term, but okay. AI is learning from data, okay? And if that data is biased, the AI is going to perpetrate those biases because, again, it is not intelligent. It is not thinking. It is not discerning. It is not making decisions. It is regurgitating stuff in a different way, a more complex way, but it's still just regurgitating based on patterns. Another con is that all of the AI tools are sourcing their learning content from copyrighted materials and not paying, giving credit, asking permission, none of those things. It's just stealing and snarfing. But then they want to charge you for the right to use the results. So that's a whole thing, and how you feel about that. Oops, I didn't bring back our little thing here. And how you feel about that, is going to impact your decisions on what it is that you do or don't want to deal with here. But, keep in mind that is a reality, and there are people that are actively being hurt by it. Writers, artists, musicians, videographers, all that kind of stuff. There is a black box problem with AI in that it's not always clear how AI is reaching the conclusion on what or why it's bringing back to you or how it's presenting it to you. There are privacy concerns, which I referenced before. AI is not only giving you something back, but it's taking the data you give it to use for other purposes, right? So there's privacy issues. So again, I want to make sure I am driving this point home for everybody. Do be very careful about what you give it. Do not give it your secure, critical business information. Be very, very careful about putting medical information in there. Do not rely on it to be your doctor, your therapist, whatever. Just be very careful about what you put in there, because whatever you put in there now, as far as AI companies are concerned, everything you give it is public domain and it gets to use it, even though that's not really true. As I referenced, I just showed you, it's not always free. There are pretty much at this point always a free level, but if you want better results, if you want more functionality, more and more, they're starting to charge for that, for the information that they've stolen. Anyway, another big thing, and this is super important to always keep in mind whenever you are looking at anything, like critical reasoning is not optional when you're using this kind of stuff, right? These tools are notorious for what they're euphemistically calling hallucinations, right? So it will generate incorrect, nonsense information and feed it back to you as if it's fact. And it will not in any way, shape, or form warn you about any part of it that may be fuzzy on the truth, or may be completely made up. Another thing to keep in mind is that the legal issues around all this stuff are still very much in early days. So if there's something that, you're trying to generate that you then need, copyright permission off of, a lot of the legal system right now is like, if it was AI generated, you cannot copyright it. Will that change over time? Probably. But right now, be very careful about the legal issues, because the other side of the legal issues is, where did this information come from? Does anybody have permission for it? And if not, how far will somebody reach when they're trying to recoup their losses? Best uses for AI at this point are things like, if you create a login account, right, and allow the tool to track your conversations, over time it will hopefully, understand a little bit better what it is that you're looking for. Again, think Netflix or Spotify recommendations. Now, of course, this is not going to be 100%, right? Just like if you share your Netflix or your Spotify or your Amazon account with someone else, the tool can't always tell who it's working with. So maybe you like sci-fi, but your roommate, family member, or whatever likes rom-coms and horror movies. Well, you're going to end up with rom-com, horror movies, and sci-fi in your results, and vice versa. Same thing applies here. So again, you're going to have to apply your own human ability to process and logically evaluate to identify what's useful and what isn't. Okay. You can do some automation of tasks with AI. I mean, some of us are doing some of that now. If you think about what you're doing with your smart assistant, maybe you've got a program to turn on certain lights at certain parts of the day. Like for me, when I come into the studio, like I give a command and it turns on the lights and the computers and all that kind of stuff. So there's a certain level of automation that you can do with it. Think like smart home, but it certainly doesn't end there. So the other side of this is, well, all right, we'll get into that in the cons, right? Okay, so yeah, we got that. You can use AI to get, quick answers to simple questions, but again, like think more about like the kind of thing you're doing with your voice assistants. So it's sort of a little step above the search engine, but again, you can't always rely on the information, and it is definitely going to fail for you. Like today when I tried to turn on the lights, my smart assistant said, I don't know about those lights, even though it's been turning them on for 5 years. So you always want to have a plan B. The other thing about AI is that it is going to, and this is, whether this is a good or a bad thing is up to you. It's going to tell you what it thinks you want to hear, okay? And it's not overly bothered by truth. So what does this mean? This means that, if you are asking it a question, if you've given it a prompt to do something, it's going to return something that, based on how it's returned this type of thing to somebody else, it thinks is going to be a good match for you. Does not mean that it is good for you. It does not mean it is necessarily addressing what you're asking for. But it makes it, it's going to give you back something. But you need to look at it and closely evaluate whether or not it is what you were looking for. And because it's not bothered by things like, truth or accuracy, it can make it a little difficult to trust for sure. You see, I have trust issues here. But also because they don't always clearly identify the source, and the historical record of the information. That makes it a little bit harder if you're not sure if it's trustworthy to be able to tell. So you're going to want to do some work on your own. For AI, do not expect it to be perfect or always right. Do not rely on it for sensitive or critical decisions. Do not assume that it's going to understand the world the way humans do. And like I mentioned, do not assume that it's up to date, because the odds are pretty good that it's not. Let's just take a little break here. I need a little sip of water. Okay. Oh boy, I'm doing a lot of talking here, and I'm trying to get through it quickly because there's a lot. But for anybody who's new here, if you want to stay on top of what's going on, if you want to know about what I've got planned for this year, you can sign up for the mailing list here, yourtechcoach/mailing list. Okay. Marcus says, you make it sound so human, it will tell you what you want to hear. Well, yeah, so and I'm trying to be careful with my language, but you're right. That is kind of what that's implying. But again, it's not sentient, okay? It's not the robots from Isaac Asimov's world, okay? It doesn't have a positronic brain. It is not learning and educating and all that kind of stuff, right? It is pattern matching, regurgitating results based on those patterns and what it has been told to do. But yeah, I'm open to a better way to say that. I totally agree with what you're saying, and I wish I could come up with something off the top of my head that would be better. Because I don't want to continue to feed into the confusion that's being generated out there. All right, so we've talked about search, we've talked about AI, so now let's talk about generative AI. So first of all, why did I break this into two? That is because there is a difference between what is out there as and being pitched as AI and generative AI, right? So generative AI is, again, the next level of AI, for lack of a better term. And a lot of people are referring to it along the lines of things like, digital content creator, that type of thing. The sales pitch on this one, okay, let's call it what it is. Marketing departments get very excited about this kind of thing. So the sales pitch is that it can, okay, big air quotes here, generate original and unique content but again, it's not, okay? So what it really does is it cobbles together results based on existing text, images, video, music, and so on, right? Information in a database. And it takes that and reworks them into a result that is adjusted to match your prompt. So this again gets back to giving you what it thinks you want to hear back, right? It's always going to tell you you're pretty. Let's put it that way. But it's not creating the way humans create. Humans can create from nothing and create something that's never existed before. That is not what generative AI is doing. It is taking things, pieces, and reworking those pieces into something that matches as close as it thinks it can to whatever it is you asked for. Because just like AI, this also requires a prompt. And again, not just a couple of keywords. You need to be very specific. You need to give it as much detail as possible. You need to put a lot of context around it. And in this case, you're generally going to need to provide it some sort of example or give it some information. So, for example, if you were going to create, an image, and I did a show, I think a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was a couple months ago at this point, about, AI in Canva, right? So you can go into Canva and you can say, generate me a picture of, a cat. And it'll spit back a cat. But unless you give it a lot of detail, it's just going to be a random cat. And it may or may not suit your needs, but if you give it examples of, show me, a kitten, that is orange in color and is playing with yarn and is inside of a living room, you'll get a little bit better results from it. There's an uncanny valley problem here, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So it's not going to come up with new ideas for you on its own. It's not like you can just go into a generative AI and say, what do you got for me today? That's not how it works. You're still having to give it a detailed prompt. You're still going to have to give it the context. You're going to probably give it examples to work off of. And then it's going to use all of its different algorithms to return the response content, right, in whatever format you asked for it, right? So, for example, you can use it to generate a first draft of like an essay or come up with, suggestions for ideas to problems. Creating realistic fakes is very popular, unfortunately, or, audio of a person. You're seeing what people also use them for, some better things like, chat bots for customer service and technical support, because a lot of that stuff is repetitive, right? How do I log into my account? How do I create a new account? How do I shut down my account? There are questions that they can anticipate because you get them a lot in customer support. And so you can use a generative AI to say, okay, when they ask this kind of a question, give them this information and make it warm and friendly, and make them feel heard, and then it will come up with that kind of stuff. But it won't be just a copy paste of a single answer, right? It will massage it a little bit to make it feel more unique than just a straight copy paste of the same information over and over. It's also used for things like, improving dubbing for music or, educational training videos, that kind of stuff, or doing translations into the different languages. Pretty handy for that kind of stuff. You can use it for writing email responses or improving your own email responses, to kind of give you feedback that you can then choose to include or not. People are also using them to spice up their dating profiles, their resumes, blog posts, term papers, that kind of thing. Like I talked about, you can create, photorealistic art in particular styles. So also, like you could say, like we go back to our kitten example. I want a picture of, a kitten playing, with orange fur, playing with a ball of yarn in a living room in the style of Van Gogh. Right? So it's going to give you that type of thing as opposed to maybe just a photographic kind of style. People use them to, come up with ideas to improve, like demonstration, product videos, that kind of stuff. Designing physical buildings and products and that kind of stuff. Optimizing designs of things. You can use it to write music, again, but you're going to have to specify, a style or a tone. And again, just like with AI, but at a now deeper level, it can also be used to process large amounts of data and return, summaries and overviews or, highlight patterns for you, that type of thing. So on the pro side, it can be a creative powerhouse as far as coming up with new ideas. Or if you don't have an idea to start with, you can use it as an idea generator. So use it for brainstorming, overcoming writer's block, coming up with new possibilities. But you're still going to have to give it the starting point, and then build off of that. And that's where that give and take kind of thing works, and where the threading is helpful, right? So if it helps you brainstorm a couple of ideas for your blog or for your next video. And then you can say, okay, let's take this idea and let's flesh it out more to cover these kinds of things, and go back and forth that way with it. But again, you really want it to just help you spark off new ideas. And it can be a time saver because it can definitely help with idea creation, SEO, keyword ideas, that type of thing. But again, keep in mind, the information it's giving you back is not up to date. It's at least a couple of years old. So again, it's ideas, getting started, great. But also remember that then you're going to want to apply your own knowledge and your own expertise on top of it. Because cons, not up to date. I think we beat that down, right? The hallucination issue absolutely is a problem here too, right? So it's going to generate incorrect, inaccurate, misleading, or nonsensical information. So if you've seen images that have given you that creep-ick feeling, right? Very often those were generative AI. And in some cases, it's a little harder to tell what it is, like to pinpoint what it is that's creeping you out. But of course, if it's got any humans, or if it's attempting to include any humans in it, that's where, when you look at it closely and you see that they've got, 3 legs and their knees are bending backwards. They've got, 6 fingers on one hand and a claw on the other. Like there's stuff that's just flat out freakishly wrong, which you will see. So those are good examples because they're so glaring. But you need to keep that in front of mind when you're working these kinds of tools, because it's also happening on a much more subtle level, whatever it is that it's returning to you. And of course, it's going to tell you what you want to hear, and not be bothered by any reality. And it's also, let's put it this way, okay? AI, generative AI, is always going to return a result, even if it has to make it up. Okay, and it's not making it up in a creative way. It's just, okay, this looks close. Here you go. It's never going to come back and say, no matches. Well, never. Never is a bad word, okay? It's generally not going to come back and say no matches, no results, like a search engine will, right? If you put something into a search engine that is overly specific or doesn't exist or whatever, a search engine is going to say, sorry, I got nothing for you. AI does not do that. AI is that person in your life that is incapable of saying, I don't know, that person is incapable of asking for directions, that's AI. So how much you've had to deal with that, how irritating that is, factor that into your AI decisions. There are also ethical concerns, just like I mentioned with AI, around copyright, plagiarism, misuse, who has the rights to the content, all that kind of stuff. So keep that in mind. And again, especially for generative AI, yes, there are some low-level free stuff, but for the best results, many of them have a cost associated with them. The other thing that people are not being informed of as they're getting started is one AI tool is not going to do everything you want it to do. It's just not. And so in order to do things, you're going to have to educate yourself about the different tools that are out there and use the right tool for the job. Now, as an example, like in I keep wanting to call it Bard, in Google Gemini, you can ask it for text back. You can also ask, and get it to generate images for you. However, ChatGPT, when you do the same kind of thing, if you ask for an image and you're not in the right version of ChatGPT, it's going to say, I can't do images, right? So then you're going to have to go and find something else. So there's more work involved there, and whether or not that's worth it to you, personal decision. The best uses for generative AI in this time period, right? It's fantastic for exploring ideas and generating, new ideas that maybe you haven't thought of yet. So brainstorming, concepts for a story, a first draft, that type of thing. Inspiration basically is what I'm saying here, right? So yes, it can create images, music, code, whatever, but you're gonna need to be using the right one. You're going to need to be giving it the right prompts, and then you need to add you to that equation. Brainstorming, it's great for inspiration for projects or whatever. It is fantastic for analyzing large data sets, You can feed multiple documents into it. So if you think of something like the LLM, so large language model, is it Notebook, Notepad, something like that from Google? So you can put in, 5, 6, 7 different documents, and it will go through and it will create summaries and explanations. You can, get answers to questions. It'll create outlines. There's one, I think it's the Google one. One of them is actually creating podcasts based on the content you put into it. So you can put in, 5 different articles on something, or, pieces of books or whatever. Now, the thing to remember about that is when you are putting in an entire document, right, or you're giving it a URL, to something that's got many, many pages in it. Again, it's not always clear, but very often they're only taking a certain section at the top. They all tend to have some sort of character limit, which is not always clearly communicated. And in order to get more, to be able to put more in, to get it to use more, very often is a paid situation. But this is something else that is pissed me off, because I see these things, the marketing hype and the articles that are out there, and, the muggle press who don't necessarily know what they're talking about anyway, talking about, oh, you can put all this stuff into it and pull it all out, but it's not telling you that it's ignoring 80% of what you gave it because it exceeded the character count. So again, if you're going to do these things, I'm sorry, but there's going to need to be some education done on your side to make sure that you're selecting the right things. You're not going to want to use generative AI as a source for factual information. We've talked about it. It hallucinates. It's not going to replace human creativity or critical thinking entirely, okay? No matter how much your boss wants to replace all of us, with these things, it's not going to work for them. And their willingness to dive headfirst into it will end up with a burning dumpster fire. It is also not going to understand the nuances of human thought, emotions, or ethics. So don't expect any of that, because it's not going to be there. And then, of course, there's the whole issue around copyright. If you need to be able to copyright this kind of stuff. So, like, I see people saying, oh, I use, AI to write my book. Well, guess what? Then the odds are really high that you cannot copyright your book, because it's not going to pass the test for copyright in the legal system. I know. It's a lot. But I do want to, get this all out there. So Marcus is saying, A is like a consultant. It's always confident. Maybe wrong, but it sounds good, right? Yes, oh, thank you. Do you mind if I steal that? Because that's really good. I love that. Notebook LM. Okay, yes, so that's it. Yeah, Notebook creates the podcast. I remember playing with it, but I play with all these things, and then I forget which one I actually did the thing in. So yeah, I did it. It was creepy. Like the whole Uncanny Valley thing was absolutely there for that. But again, I'm not... People say, oh, you're bad-mouthing this stuff. I'm not. What I want is everybody to be making informed decisions about what it is that they're doing and how they're doing it, and being, informed about the results they get back, right? Like I said, if you take, maybe you've been writing, thesis papers or term papers or, scientific treaties, right? And they're 800 pages, and you've got 5 or 6 of them on a topic, and you want to go into Notebook and have it go and synthesize it and help you find the patterns and all that kind of stuff. Great, but it's not necessarily giving you all 800 pages. So just be aware. That's all I'm asking. That's all. The whole reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't like people being spoon-fed these lies, and then they're getting the results back, and they're not even able to really evaluate the results because they don't understand what happened, because it was not explained. It was not exposed, right? These tools should say, hey, the information we're returning to you are based on, the first 15 paragraphs of what you gave me and information I found as of 2018. Then at least you know what you're looking at. Then at least you know what you're dealing with, and you can make intelligent decisions based on that. But when they do this kind of thing and they're implying to you that it's magic and it's working and it saved you all this time and money, maybe, but maybe not, depending on what your needs were. So again, we need to be very, very clear about this kind of stuff. So I'm going to wrap this up. I do have bonus stuff for the folks who power all the way through, but before I wrap up and get to that point, I do want to just give you some general tips for navigating this world right now. The first thing I want to cover is yes, because I can hear somebody already typing furiously in the comments. There is some blending and crossover happening here, and I've already kind of applied that, the AI to the generative AI move. But the search engines, yes, there's AI being used in the background of those now. Yes, the companies are shoving AI into the background of our smart assistants and all that. Frankly, and if you've been paying attention at all and are aware of this, people have been reporting less helpful results from their smart assistants, right? So the devices on your phone, all that kind of stuff, for months, maybe over a year now. People are starting to pick up on it's not as good as it was. Guess why? Because they're shoving AI in the background and trying to use that in place of the people who were building out the tools that were making these tools helpful for us. Like I mentioned, right? For 5 years, it's been turning on the lights in here, and all of a sudden today it said, I don't know anything about lights in there. So yes, this is happening in the background. What we're focusing on here is just the tools that we are directly interacting with, not the stuff that's happening in the background, because frankly, we have no control over it. We have no visibility into it, so on and so forth. But yes, the blending and the crossover is happening. And yes, there will be benefits from it. Absolutely. But it is not a replacement for all the other things, which is what they're trying to do. You are probably used to typing a few words or phrases, in a search engine to get results. And yes, you can do that in AI and generative AI, but really to get any benefit from it, it's all about crafting the effective prompts, right? So yes, that does include keywords. And you could go to a search engine and say, hey, what's the best, new Italian restaurant near me, and get results. But the prompts are more like instructions that include questions, right? Because you've got to give it the context and the guidance for it to understand, right? So, hey, I'm looking for a cozy restaurant near me with outdoor seating, live music, vegetarian options, and is handicap accessible, right? Can you recommend some locations and, give me links to their menus and a list of the days and times when they're not crowded. Like, that's more of a useful AI type of approach. Now, but again, if a restaurant's opened in the past 90 days in your town, or in a zip code that you give it, or a location because you're going on vacation, it's not necessarily going to know about that. So, number one, please, know your tools. Use the right tool for the right job. Understand the strengths and limitations of each variation, right? Don't expect a search engine to write a song or generative AI for you. And don't expect AI to give you real-time stock prices, at least, not now. And always customize whatever results you get back. Don't ever just copy, paste, and go. And I'm, specifically, for anybody, education world, know that the results that you copy and paste out of these tools are going to get flagged by plagiarism checkers, because it is plagiarism. They went out, they took other people's content, and they gave it back to you. They may have combined it with multiple people's content, but just be aware that that is an issue, and you do need to still do the work yourself. Fine to use it for ideas. Fine to do it for research. But then verify and then build. Fact check everything that you get, that you put in and you get back, right? Always double check, triple check the information, especially, from generative AI, but from any of this, because it's going to make mistakes. It's absolutely going to make mistakes. And because of the learning lag, it's not going to be up to date. So maybe the answer it's giving you is correct for 2018, but things have changed in 2025, right? Be very specific. And this also helps with search, right? The more precise you are, the better the results for your search query. Same thing is true for AI. The more specific, the more context you give the prompt, the better off it is. If you want to play with these tools, if you want to benefit from them, embrace the learning curve, right? Don't be afraid to experiment and try different tools. The more you use them, the better you'll understand their capabilities. But there is a learning curve to all of this. And that's going to continue because they're going to keep changing it, right? And please, try to use it all responsibly, right? Be mindful of the biases, respect the copyright issues. Don't use AI as an excuse, to spread misinformation or harm other people. That's not okay. For now, the best approach is a combination of the things, right? Use your search engine, use the AI, do your own, digging, evaluate closely what it is that you're getting back, and put it together in a way that only you can, because that's really what the benefit is of all of this. Is yes, it's going to give you something to work off of, and it will make it faster for you to achieve your own goals, and dig in there, right? So search for quick answers, finding websites, getting broad overviews, and then AI for deeper analysis, creative exploration, inspiration, or if you need help like formulating your thought, polishing your thought, that kind of thing. but I know I've said this and I'm going to say it again. Critical thinking by the human is key. No matter what tools you're using, no matter what resources you're using, always think critically about the information that you're being presented, double check, ask more questions, and try to keep things positive. That's a good thing. It is evolving. It is changing. I will, if let me know in the comments if you want more on this. But I'm hoping that this helps clear some things up and will help you decide how you want to use each one of these options. Like I said, I do have a bonus for people who want to stick around for a few more minutes. But for you folks, who need to go, totally understand. Thank you so much for cruising by. If you have questions, comments, you have a topic you want me to cover, you can go ahead and hit up yourtechcoach.com. There's a form there. Feel free to use it. I'm also putting out training content that you can go and check out there. So feel free to go ahead and do that. For you folks who power through to the end, you know how much I appreciate you. So I'm going to do a quick demo to just kind of help explain what we've been talking about here. So we're going to take a very, simple approach, and just because I think it'll drive home what we're talking about. All right, so we want this one. Yes. Okay. So here we are. We're going to start with just a Google search right now. For this, the whole thing is that we want to just, put in something simple. So, and then we're going to go into Gemini and ChatGPT and all that. So let's ask it to write us a cat poem. Poem, right? And I'm going to, and I'm just like, we're just doing that, right? And so it's obviously not generating anything, right? But it is showing us poems about cats, images with the cats, so on and so forth. If we go into Gemini, now again, we've got lots of options here. I'm going to go with the everyday help one, okay? And I'm going to say cat poem. Okay, and it's now gone out and looked at different cat poems, and it has come back and give me another one, right? Now, if I put this in here again, I'm not going to get the same one back. I'm going to get a different one back. And the reason I want to drive this point home is because if you get a result and then you want to go back to it, that is damn near impossible. Because like this one is completely different from this one. And if I come back tomorrow and go, I like the one where it says, Hunter Born. If you want this, save it. Now, again, if you created an account, it will still for a certain period, give you access to previous ones. But we're going to do this one more time. Okay, and another completely different one. So now let's go to ChatGPT and do the same thing. Okay, so perched upon a windowsill, creature comp. But now if we go back, let's say, are we getting the same results? And we're not, right? The first one is Shadow of the Night, Silent Tread, and Mischievous Gleam. And this one is perched on a windowsill. And then if I do this again, it's asking me for more, but then it ignored, it didn't wait for an answer, right? So it just went ahead and it said, okay, well, here's another one. Whisper of Fur, So Sleek. But again, completely different. And then it's asking, do you want me to tailor? Now, if I just say the same thing again, it's going to give me a completely different result. Which is, of course, different than, in Google. If you now go and search for cat poem, you'll probably see a lot of the same results. So now let's take this into something like, not something like, we're going to take it into Canva, right? And we're going to do, with Magic Write, we're going to do paragraph generator. And I'm just going to say cat poem. Okay, and it's just spit out another one. And I can, insert this, or I can, do another one. But of course, now this is, in this world, it is chewing up the credits that you get. So now, just for funsies, oh, it lost it. Okay, so let's say, make me an image. Okay, and I'm going to say cat poem. I'm curious to see what it's going to come back with. Okay, and it's brought back cats reading a poem, cats sitting on books, okay? Because that's all I gave it. So now let's take this in the other direction, right? Because now we're in a visual one. So let's say image of, here, we'll do the reference I was doing before. Image of kitten playing with a ball of yarn. Okay, I've even given it a little more information. I could just say image of a kitten, but we'll give it a little bit more. I'm going to to copy this because we're going to use this again. Okay, so here we go. Some random pictures of a kitten that are frankly creepy. This one's missing a leg. This one is not looking at what it's playing with. Like, sometimes I've gotten pretty good at identifying what's freaking me out. But yeah, but it did, okay. But now if I come here, okay, and we do the same thing in Magic Write. So again, I'm going to say paragraph generator. Now, of course, it's looking for a paragraph. So I can't wait to see what we get here. Okay, and it says, I'm unable to generate. So we go back up here. I'm unable to generate an image of a kitten, but I can help you imagine one. And it's writing up some text. So because this is where we're talking about right tool for the right job. I'm in something, I'm in the text editor, and I asked it for an image, and it goes, yeah, I can't do that. So now let's do this in ChatGPT. Now, in the interest of, let's see here. We're going to start a new one, right? So I'm not carrying over anything from the cat poem thing. This is a fresh one. So I'm going to say this. Oh, that's funny. Before it wouldn't do this. Okay, when I tried this yesterday, it did not give images back. It said I can't do that. That's interesting. So again, things are changing all the time. But yeah, when I did this yesterday, it said, no, I can't do images. You have to go to a different tool for that. But now it did this one. So now let's do it in Gemini. And again, we're going to do a new chat. Start off clean. Okay, and it gave me a YouTube video. It says YouTube right on here. Did it just snarf that? Let's see, is it actually a YouTube video? It's actually a YouTube video. Okay, so it did not create anything. It just returned a YouTube video. Why did I go through this? Because I want you to see that you get different results from different places. And depending on how good or descriptive, your input is, that's what you're going to get back. But like I said, yesterday I didn't get anything back from ChatGPT when I asked for an image. It said, no, I don't do images. And I had to go and try something else. So it is a well worth your time thing to go in and try these and test it out and get some ideas from it and let it, refresh your brain, a little sorbet for your brain, right? Maybe open up some new ideas for you. But it is very much a complex situation, and not everything is going to be able to do everything, so you may need to go other places for it. So yes, be open to it. Yes, go ahead and try it. Yes, give it a try, but also remember, at the end of the day, you need to do the things for you. Maybe a cat song. Oh yeah, I'm sure they would create a cat song. To be honest, when I did this earlier in the week, when I had the idea to do this topic, and I was putting in these kinds of examples, like these super, cat poem, cat song, for some reason that day from the AIs, I was getting a lot of stuff from Cats the movie and Cats the play. Today, that didn't come up at all. And I was putting in just the same thing, like these simple words. I was not specifying anything else. So different days, different times, the different information it's got, the different version of the tool that you're in. Like I said, if I go, actually, we can do that. We'll take one more second here. Okay, so let's try in this one. Let's go, let's try the experimental. And it looks like it's not giving me an image. It's giving me text about an image. Is it still processing? It's still processing. And processing. But still no image. So let's just try Pro. So again, one tool, different settings, different options. Okay, this one gave me the same one back. Very weird. Yesterday, it gave me a picture of a cat on a windowsill playing with a ball of yarn. This is the reality of it. Just be aware of that, and then dive in and use it. Go for it. Have a good time with it. All right, everybody. I'm going to set you free here. Thank you so much. I knew this was going to be a long one, but hopefully this has helped you get a clearer picture in your head of which tool to use for what the strengths and weaknesses are, and then go forth and do and build and be creative and do the things. We're here every week. I don't talk about this stuff every week. I do different, tech topics. So feel free to reach out if you would like to have me cover something specific. Otherwise, I hope you will come back and visit again. We will talk soon. Bye.